David, I'm so excited to speak with you again. We was discussing last time about your experiences growing up, but we didn't get round to your near-death experience. Would you mind just to share with us what led up to that and yeah, let's just start there. What led up to that?
Uh, I was leaving a party and I was going home because I had to work the next day, and a car pulled out in front of me. I mean, there was no way for me to stop because I was about 2 or 3 foot away when the car pulled in front of me. And I hit the car, and it was like everything was slow motion. I mean, I can see every detail of the people I hit face. The children, there were like 3 children. There was a lady driving who I knew the lady because me and her brother named Bo Show were best friends, and we were teammates on the wrestling team. And I could see every crack glass. I mean, they all was the same dimension, exactly the same. And it was like maybe thousands and thousands of broke glass, but it didn't broke yet. It was shattering in slow motion. And I hit her. She went this way. I went that way. I hit a wood pole, electrical pole. It went to falling down, and it ricocheted me in the right direction. And I stopped, and I looked back, and it looked like a Bruce Willis movie. I mean, sparks and flames and power lines were everywhere. And I said, oh, man, I got to get out of here. And I hit that gas and hit the highway. And it looked like the whole police force was in back of me. So I cut my lights off, turned down the side road, and next thing I know, I was on Sunrise Parkway. And a Bronco ran they were trying to, catch the yellow light. And a Bronco hit me head up because they were in motion and I was in motion. And I ricocheted to the left into a concrete light pole. And by the way, I had to pay for both light poles, But the remarkable thing happened. Before I hit that concrete light pole, I was out of my body. I was in the cab of the truck, looking down at my body. As the engine come towards me and the steering wheel, and I'm slowly moving like while the engine raised over me, I'm looking at the bottom of the engine, but I'm still in the top of the cab looking down at the body. And I slid over the engine, went past my head. It took both back seats of my truck and tuck it in the back of the cab. In the back of the cab was folded like a sandwich. But like I say, the remarkable thing was I was out of the bodies before impact. And I hope that brings some kind of closure to people who loved one had a traumatic death, whether it was murder or car accident, because I felt nothing. I was out of the body, and as I was out of the body, I was in somebody's backyard, far away from the accident, but I could see the intersection, and it looked like the intersection was right here, right before my eyes. So I'm looking at me walking with the police. I'm looking at me on the ground as the police officer Springs asking questions. And then I'm looking at me past the moon. I'm past the moon looking down. And I'm looking at me from like surround sounds with me in the middle, watching myself. And I'm in Russia at a beautiful waterfall escalade. Everybody was socializing in a big downtown with waterfalls, fountains, water fountains everywhere, beautiful. But I'm also in Germany in a beautiful white Christmas setting. Everybody was in, again, a downtown square that undescribable. It can't be described. And it was beautiful. Snow were everywhere. You know, we outside sitting at the table having lunch. And I'm also in France in an outside restaurant having brunch with some of the best tasting toasted bread I ever had in my life. But I'm also on several planets. I'm on one planet where it had no sky. It was just you on the planet and you lift your hands up. Now you're in space, right here on up. You're in space. It looked like you can touch the other planet, look like you can touch the stars, all this. It was like a 3D situation. And I'm also on another planet, what I call the crystal planet. And it had like hard white diamonds and crystal. The diamond had a bluish color, you know, had a bluish color to them, white, bluish. And I'm also with my mom and dad. They looking at Stanford and Son, eating crabs. And they get a phone call. Your son died in a traffic accident. Can y'all please meet the ambulance to the hospital to identify the body and get it out of him because we overloaded with bodies. And y'all need to call somebody to come get it because we got nowhere to put it. You know, and at all these places, but I'm on the ground with the police. And I'm walking with the police side by side, you know. The ambulance was coming, and I was with the ambulance people when they got the call. You know, I told them all what they were eating and everything, you know. And the ambulance people coming in. Officer String say, hey, check that guy out. I was just talking to that young man. He should be all right. He probably just fainted or something. So the one guy checked. He checked my heart. And he checked my wrist. He said, oh, that guy dead. No way that guy dead, Officer Spring said. I just was talking to that kid, man. He said, hey, you go ahead and check him. Other person checked. They checked my ankle. And they checked my neck. They say, man, he dead. He said, man, y'all got to be kidding me. He said, hell, you might as well check him too. So the other person checked. Oh, he dead. The Officer Spring said, man, I might as well check him out. So let me hold that temperature. And he put it on my chest, and he put it here, and he put it on my ankle. He said, God, why did you take this kid? He just left college. Why did you take him so young, God? Oh my God, I was just talking to the kid, man. So 2 more officers come up there. And these are officers wanted to take me to jail, Officer Water and Officer Cooper. And they moved the shit. And I looked down, I couldn't tell it was me. It had no face. So I didn't know that was me. I'm saying to myself, man, I done killed somebody. And I'm side by side with Officer Spring. You know, I'm still thinking I'm living. And one of the officers said, well, that one less thug on the street. The Officer Spring said, why you call him a thug? Say, look at his truck. How a young man get a truck like that? We can't even afford a truck like that. The Officer Spring say, he just graduated college. He's a golf course superintendent. He's not a thug. Why don't y'all go out and bust some drug dealers and get off with my son? So them 2 guys left. And I'm still standing with Officer Spring. He's pretty upset, you know. And next thing I know, I'm floating. And I'm like, touch that shoulder, touch that shoulder. And I'm floating. Oh my God. I'm dead. The first thing I did was thought about my parents. And when I thought about them, I was with them. I was standing in the back of them. And I'm saying, man, mom and daddy gonna miss me. Then I'm thinking about my brothers. I had 7 older brothers. Well, 6 older brothers, but 2 of them were in the Bahamas. They live in the Bahamas, but I was with my other brothers, and man, my brother gonna miss me. Boy. Then next thing I know, I say, man, I wonder what my girlfriend gonna do. That lady ain't finna get no job or work. Ain't nobody finna take care of that woman. And at that moment, my heavenly instinct kicked it in. And I say, man, I'll see them tomorrow. Because I knew that one day in heaven equal 100 years on earth. The living don't miss the dead, but the dead miss the living. And I realized it. And I looked down on earth again. I forgot all earthly events. I forgot everything. I even forgot my death just that quick. All earthly events were gone. All famous people were gone. It was no such thing as a famous person on earth. And I'm looking down at the stimulation because that's what it was. And I said to myself, man, I feel sorry for them. I'm glad I got out of that. You know what I mean? And I just feel sorry for everybody on earth because I don't find out the secret of life. Everything on earth in the physical world was just a temporary illusion. It's nothing to lose sleep about. It's nothing to stress out about. Even death is a lie. Because I never felt alive until the day that I died. And I will stand by that 100%. Death is a lie. Because I never felt so good in my life. And once I realized that everything was just a temporary illusion, I took off fast as I can. I was moving faster than the sound of speed and light combined. I had the strength of 1,000 Superman. I mean 1,000. And I would stop every once in a while and just stop and look at my hands and say, can't nobody stop me. Nobody can't stop me. I'm the most powerful entity in this universe. In the whole while, I had earth in the palm of my hand. I don't understand that till today. Earth was in the palm of my hand the whole while I was doing it. And I'm trying to distance myself from my body, and I'm trying to distance myself from earth because I figure the farthest way I get from there, I never got to come back again. I didn't want to come back. I tried everything to get out. You know what I mean? And I know where I was going. I was going to see my heavenly wife and heavenly daughter. I could see my home. It was like, the buildings in Rome with the big columns and pure white, just pure. And I wanted to get home to my heavenly wife and my heavenly daughter. And I was going. But I kept stopping because I couldn't believe I was so powerful. I had the strength of 100 Supermen. And I just felt nobody could stop. And then after a while, I stopped. I was powerless. I mean, powerless than a baby. I couldn't move. I couldn't do nothing. And I realized I was face to face with God. And he answered all my questions before I can even think of what to say. And and I was asking common questions like, what is the true religion? You say you already know. And I felt God was my father. And matter of fact, I know him for millions of years. I wasn't scared of him. Even though I never felt a presence so powerful. God felt like 1,000 category, 1,000 storms. It was about to happen. And this when God will come. That when he will come. That's how powerful he was. In his presence, you can't move, you can't do nothing. You just there. And then he let you relax, and you can start moving again. But every time he spoke, everything completely stopped. I mean, completely stopped. If I had to describe God, he would be a mega giant. Remind you, I had earth in the palm of my hand. We made me a giant. But compared to God, I was a mosquito. I was a mosquito. And one of the lights went out. Was the light still okay?
Yeah, the lights are good. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. And if I had to describe God, he would be a mega giant because you could have put 15 of me in God's eyeball with earth in my hand. And that's how big God was. And he was transparent. You can see, the outline. You can see all the outlines, the long hair, the beard, the eyes. Very muscular. Very muscular. His arm was the size, each arm was the size of 2 football fields. And his chest was very muscular outline. Everything was clear, just like looking through wind. But you can see the outline. And the muscle, stomach muscle, you see everything. But from the waist on down, it was a tornado going round and around and around and around and around. And it consists of every element in the universe. I've seen gold stars, diamonds, silver stars. I've seen white cosmic dust, gold cosmic dust, sparkles. There's everything in the element. Diamond, it all going round and round and around and around like a tornado. So from the bottom part, God just was basically an energy source, like a tornado with all the elements in it. And I say, Father, I don't want to go back, Father. Father, please, I don't want to go back. Haven't I suffered enough, Father? And he say, it's not your turn, in a powerful voice. The voice make Jane Earl Jones and Morgan Freeman voices sound like little baby. You know what I mean? It was a powerful voice. Next thing I know, I'm in the ambulance. And I pulled the cover from over my head. And the ambulance, it were 2 guys back there. And they told the guy to stop the ambulance from coming to back. And they all 3 kept looking at me for a while. And then one of them say, you were dead for over 20 minutes, right? I said, yeah, I know. I had the world in the palm of my hand, man. I had the world in my hand. Please send me back. Please, sir, send me back. Do what y'all got to do. I just want to go back. They said, man, we can't send you back. That's murder. And I said, man, who gonna know? And then I told them all what they were eating when they got the call. They were amazed. And I asked them, I said, hey, do y'all get this all the time? They say, yeah. I said, y'all believe it? They say, yeah, it got to be true because too many people, recite the same thing. And that was my near-death experience when I was face to face with God.
Well, that's incredible. When you were up there, did you feel any different emotionally? Did you feel any connection in any different way? Or did it feel like a continuation?
I saw my family, I would say, as co-workers. We came down to earth to share a journey together. That's how I saw my family, and that's how I saw my friends, and that's how I saw my coworkers. You know, they were my heavenly family. You know, they were my earthly family. And I remind people, you know, because I talk to people now, and they say, oh, I hope I reunite with my son. Oh, I hope I reunite with my husband. I hope my husband is my heavenly husband. And I tell them, man, we've been here for millions of years. We're doing the same thing over and over until we reach eternal life standard. And to reach eternal life standard, you got to have a certain amount of points, you know, because like my angel told me, she said, when we go in front of God to sign up for our life, we have all our lives. We sign up at the same time. And all them lives will grant you eternal life status. But the same credit you get for each life, you can also use them up in prayer. You know, you can pray for your daughter like you in heaven, but you can still pray for your daughter. You can still pray for your son. You know, and you using up credit. So you got to reach a certain amount of credit to gain eternal life status. And once you gain that status, my angel told me you can never lose. You know, you ain't got to come back to earth no more. But if you decide to come back to earth a million years from now, you still have your eternal life status. You don't never lose it. But I saw everybody on earth as somebody I shared a journey with, not as I still saw my mama and my father as my mama and my father. But I ain't see my brothers or friends like they was on earth. They were just somebody we shared a journey together. But as far as feeling good, as I say again, I never felt alive until the day I died. I never had that feeling on earth. Never. And that's why you see people who die and come back. Most of them try to commit suicide because they want to get that feeling again. Because you can't get that feeling on earth. I was free. You know, I can move faster than the speed of sound and light. And I'm quite sure I can blink an eye. Because my angel used to do a blink an eye and she did. You know what I mean? So, but you got to know the system to do that. You know what I mean?
So what is the system?
I don't know the system, but I know when I was traveling with angels, they know what tunnels to hit. They know what black holes to hit. And you be there in no time. Boom. You're in a whole nother universe. That's just how quick it happen like that. So they know the system, you know, they can blink their eye and they can pop up anywhere. You know, I went that far advanced because I was just over there, you know what I mean? But the speed I had was incredible.
Normally, I'm just asking because everyone has their own unique experience. Did you find out what your purpose was on earth here?
Well, I've been on my purpose since I would say 10-year-old, 11-year-old, because my angels been taking me to heaven, you know, upon God's request to show me certain things, you know, to take away my fear of death. But what I was told, and it was crazy at the time, because I got the worst bullet story you ever want to hear. You know, since kindergarten all the way up to college. And matter of fact, my mama, I mean, one day, you say you talk to that angel. Do she ever tell you who you is? And I said, Mama, the angel say I'm a warrior. She said, every day she need to go and turn in her angel license, boy, because the way you get them whooped every day, ain't no way you's a warrior. You know what I mean? But the angels say I'm one of 4 warriors leaders in God's army for the final war. She's been training me for millions of years, and I must train each lifetime on earth and in heaven. And I remember all my training. You know, I remember every time me and her went to heaven to train. I remember when, you know, we were in my den, or she just pop up in my bedroom and they transform into, you know, a part of heaven, and I trained. So I remember all my training, but I still couldn't put it together. You know what I mean? When I was 10 and 11, 12 and 13 and 14-year-old, you know, I couldn't put it together until I got to college. And it was like President Clinton calling. It was like going back in time to another era. And I don't know how he guessed that, but that's how it felt to all the students, from out of town and out of state. It felt like we were back in time. And I realized when we're all over with and done, oh my God, what did I do? This can't be real. I closed the book on slavery and Black history, according to governmental research. So that was my journey on earth. But on the other side, I'm training for the final war as a warrior leader in God's army. And I find that amazing, because how many people are told who they are by an angel and God? God and the angel told me who I'm, and I still don't realize it. And I just figure out, I was talking to a lady on Facebook after we were responding to a post. And I say, this one thing I don't understand. She said, what? I say, my angel, God told my angel the only way she can save me in heaven if she and I become husband and wife, heavenly husband and wife. And I say, but how can an angel marry a human? And the lady say, the angel ain't married no human. And I say, what you mean? She say, if you're a leader in God's army, God's army got 72,000 angels. And for you to be over 72,000 angels, you got to be an angel. And that never crosses. But my angel always taught angels, God, and everybody else, they come down to earth. You never know who God is. You never know who an angel is. So that's why you treat everybody nice. And for a matter of fact, she told me, after about 40 years, she said, you and I were husband and wife in the 1800s. And I died during birth. It happened to birth of our daughter. She said, me and my daughter died. Our daughter died. And you lived a lonely, lonely life because you never forgave yourself. So that's why God let me come and interact with you. And before she died, right, she came here. And I was sitting on the bed and she popped up. And I'm like, what's up? Because normally she pulled me out of my body, you know what I mean? And she said, I come to say goodbye. And I said, what you mean say goodbye? She said, I want to prepare our home in heaven. I mean, in the kingdom of God, which is not in heaven. She said, God don't live in heaven with everybody. He live in the kingdom of God. And I must die. She said, she must die to move to the next level. And she said, the next level, we can't travel no more. That's out. We can't talk that much no more. She said, the next angel level, she can't talk that much. And I said, man, I'm confused. How can an angel die? And she said, angels and humans must die in cycle to reach a higher level. She said, some angels satisfied with the lower level, some humans satisfied with the lower level. She said, but I want you and I to be living at the highest level. And God also gave me permission to show you our daughter. Boom, the daughter popped up on the bed. As soon as the daughter popped up, the angel died in my arms, right? I think seven or four tall reapers, they come through the wall. And they picked her up out of my arms. And when they left, the baby disappeared. And I'm like, wow. I cut on every light in the house. Every light in the house. And I just sat there because it was like 3:33, So 6 o'clock, I run to my mama's house, because I had to take her to the doctor. And I was going to take her to eat. And she been looking forward to this for 2 weeks. So at the same time, my brother came. And he was a chef. He was just getting off from work. And he just picked the wife up to take her to work. And he stopped by with his wife. And he said, David, who the baby on the bed? Who the baby on the bed? He said, man, what's the baby on my bed, man? He said, I hide under the cover. Man, who the baby? I know you still talk to them people. Do you still see that angel? And I said, yeah, I saw the baby in the angel. And his wife real religious, and she looked like, Savior, what are you talking about? What do you mean David can talk to angels? Savior said, oh, he been talking to angels his whole life. Me and him used to travel with the angel, but she quit taking me with them and just take David. And he said, what the angels say? I said, the angels say that she my wife and that's my baby. And he said, man, somebody finna die. I said, yeah, I know, because the baby won't cry. He said, well, what that mean? I said, the baby won't cry. I said, but I can feel death, bro. And he said, well, I'm finna take dad to the doctor when I drop my wife off. You take mom to the doctor. He said, man, get all your guns. I said, I got my guns, man. I got all my guns on. And he said, well, I got my gun. When I take dad to the doctor, I'm going to buy a thing full of crab to try to keep everybody home today. Because me and him thought our two older brothers were going to be in trouble. So he said, after we cook the crab, if they still go out, me and you going to go over to Duke's house. If we just going to sit there, be quiet, and check things out to make sure nothing happened to them two boys. And I said, I got you, Savior, but dog, something going to happen, bro. So I go in the house. Me and him went in the house with their wife. My mama said, Dave, come put my leg on. So I went to put her leg on. And the lady, one of her friends who was a nurse, my mama said, he the only one can put my leg on because he let me use his arm to put myself up. And the lady snatched her up from the back. And my mama got real upset. She said, I'm buried. You can't lift me like that. That's why I called him to help me up. And I gave her walker, after I put her leg on. She stood up, and for the first time, she didn't shake. And I said, baby, you getting strong. She said, it don't feel like it. I said, yeah, baby, you strong because you ain't shaking this time, Mom. As soon as she sat down, she died in my arms. She died in my arms. So for 5 years, I ain't thinking about my mama dying, because she visited me like 2 or 3 times after she died. I'm just thinking about how can angels die? And one day I posted a story on Facebook, and an Indian spiritual woman, because she talked to me in private, right? And she said, your angel took away the heart of death for all. I said, what you mean? She said, that angel took away that pain what a child feel when he loses his mother. So you ain't thought about your mama dying. All you would think about, how can an angel die? So that's how angels confuse you, to take away your grief. Take away your grieving process. When that lady said that, I realized what happened. My angel, who is also my heavenly wife, loved me so much, she gave her life to kill my grief. Now, 5 years after my mama died, when that lady told me that, I go to crying like a baby. You know what I mean? Because it stopped me with grieving for 5 years. And I realized what my angel did, and I realized, man, I lost my mama. But my mama made it easy on me because she visited me every other week since she been dead. She died in 99. She visited me. She give me warnings. She let me know if something bad gonna happen. She let me know when something good gonna happen. Just like my brothers, just like my daddies, just like my pet, everybody. I still have a relationship with all my dead loved ones. And everybody can basically do it. You know what I mean? Everybody can. I know I was born into it, because I was doing this since I was 4 years old. But everybody can do it. But like the angels say, human is distracted by noise. Just the noise distract you in every other way. So I always try to get somewhere quiet, and it's hard to do now. When I was growing up, in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s, I can find a quiet place in my house. Just pure darkness. Pure dark. And I close my eyes and I'm there. But nowadays I can't really do it. It happened by mistake sometimes, I come out the body or whatever, but I can't do it like I used to do it because I went a long time without doing it. But I still had a relationship, and most people had a relationship. Like I got a friend named Vanessa, right? She lost her son. She lost her son named Jason. And I met her in a room, near death room, and she grieving. But she was a hard case. Then other people I meet grieve. And I realized that this lady is powerful, and she still don't know it to this day. She said, "Oh, I wish Jason was back. I wish my Jason was back." She cracked 2 eggs, 3 yolks. I said, "That's for relativity. You finna get pregnant." She take a pregnancy test the next day. Right? She pregnant. But when she cracked the 3 yolks, Jason was looking at her smirk. Right? It was a big dream. Jason looking at her smirk. And she said, "Why would he smirk?" I said, "Because your wish have been granted. That Jason in your bed." Right? "Oh, I don't want Jason that way. I want Jason the way he left. I want him to be the same Jason when." I said, "Never. You ain't finna get that. You ain't finna get that." I said, "Jesus didn't even do that. Jesus came back in spirit form." She said, "Well, I don't want Jason to be in my belly. I don't want to be no baby." 2 days later, she had a miscarriage. She had a miscarriage. She said, "Now I want a baby. I want a baby because I had a baby." I said, "Look here, man, let me tell you one thing. Can you do me a favor?" She said, "What?" I say, "Jason came to you in the physical form by 10 times. He done visited you in dreams and told you that it's nobody's fault he dead. It was an accident. Everybody thought somebody called 911, but nobody called 911 because they always came. So they were hoping somebody else called 911. Say, Mom, it's nobody's fault that I'm dead. It was my time." And I say, "Boy, you had a dream like that?" She said, "Yeah." I say, "The dead don't lie." I say, "He said ain't nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault." I say, "You lucky, man. You's a prayer." I say, "You's a prayer master." I say, "Your son will show you every example whatsoever that he's alive," right? The next day I get an invite. And it say, "Justice for justice." And I say, "Oh, Lord have mercy." I say, "Nelson, he just told you it was nobody's fault." She said, "Oh, but I miss him so much. I miss him so much." I say, "Hey, man, you got power. You need to tap in your powers and respect your powers." I say, "I'm going to show you how much power you got." I say, "Please pray that I can get a show or two so I can just tell my story and reach more people." 3 days later, me and you talk. You know what I mean? So people have the power, but they won't accept it, They won't accept it. They have dreams of their dead loved ones, and to them it means nothing. It's just a dream. But dreams are real. My angel sat me down for hours telling me that God invented the dream world so humans and the dead can still communicate and have relationships. My brother died in September, right? September the 17th, September the 27th. He took me fishing in a place that's so beautiful. It was inside a cave, inside a big mountain, and I'm just fishing. And he just standing over me. You all right, brother? You all right, baby brother? I said, yeah, Cedric, you ain't gonna fish. And he had every food that I even can dream of right there while I'm fishing. It was so much food. You ever had so much food you don't want to eat? And that's how I was in the dream. And this place was so beautiful. I do anything to go back there again, you know. They have relationships, like my angel said. The relationship are real. Because the dead going to throw hints. Because they got to get direct permission from God and high angels to talk to you. So they rarely talk. They rarely talk. I had one tell me, my buddy named Gary, right? I had a vivid dream. We were on our old job. And his brother was playing with my keys, and he threw them across the gate. And the brother jumped over the gate, and when he jumped in the gate, he disappeared. You know, when he hit the road, he disappeared. Remind you, I live in South Florida, and this was the summer. But all love was puzzled because ain't no lake and no road. This is a solid road. Ain't no lake or nothing. But in the dream, he went in the lake, and he was trapped under the road, and they were trying to find him. And his dead brother Gary walked through the crowd, and he said, "Man, Pookie dead." And I'm like, ain't no dead person never told me no stuff like that. You know what I mean? I said, "Man, Pookie dead." And me, him, and Pookie all ever raised up together. So I called my ex-wife, her and Pookie first cousin, you know, and my buddy Gary. And I said, "Man, I had a weird dream. Gary told me Pookie dead." And my ex-wife said, "You ain't heard about Pookie?" I said, "No, what?" She said, "They gave Pookie 3 weeks to live." And I'm like, "What?" She said, "They gave Pookie 3 weeks to live." And Pookie died in about 3 weeks. And one day I was leaving, you know, I dropped my goddaughter off, and I was leaving. And Pookie was out there on the porch. And I started to back up. But the car pulled me, right? So I said, well, that must be Pookie nurse. And I left. Died 2 days after that. And in my dream, me and the guy were fighting to the death. And I didn't know what was going on. I'm an ex-wife. I said, "Hey, man, Pookie hate me." She said, "I don't know, but he always making jokes about the mighty Dave can't walk. The mighty Dave got to use a walker." And I say, "Pookie?" And I said, "I had your Pookie on every job." She said, "Well, Pookie must be with Jelly because Pookie always making jokes about you and everybody go to laugh." And she said, "Matter of fact, the last time you left our house when you dropped my daughter off, all them people out front." I said, "Y'all remember?" She said, "Pookie walk up and say, the mighty Dave can't walk." And everybody went to laughing. And she said, "My mama said something bad gonna happen to you. Because that boy don't mess with nobody. He gave all y'all jobs. He pay all y'all bills and y'all ain't got no money and y'all ain't even got to pay on bike. He tell y'all don't worry about it." And that was probably like 6 months before, you know, no, 3 months before he died. But everybody got the power. You know, they just got to respect it. You know, some people just don't want to buy a book. Like when somebody grieving, I always recommend Sylvia Brown book. You know, about the other side. You know, the other side and because when I was grieving, and I do grieve, you know, but when I was grieving over my mama a little, you know, because the angel hadn't blocked that. But when I was grieving over, I mean Gary, not my mama, my buddy Gary, in public, I had to go to this book, Sylvia Brown book, and it hit things that I done experienced. And it relaxed. it take away the grieving process so you can realize, like my granddaddy told me, think when the angel stopped the storm and went down. He said because, he was in his 90s. And he said he was scared, thinking ain't nothing after this life until he seen the angel dancing and singing, that night. And lots of people need that, you know what I mean? Because I ain't know I had no kind of gift for nothing. Cause I was going 40 years without even telling anybody. Ain't nobody knew but my mom and my brother saying. When I stopped working, I went to going to these Facebook rooms, I got plenty of time to kill, and I've seen near-death experience, life after death. Hey, let me check these rooms out. And I find out that I'm helping a lot of people. I'm posting my stories. I'm getting response. Listen. And I'm saying, man, every time I go in one of these rooms, I get tons of people in my DM. And these people need closure, because they dead loved ones of their husband. And I realized, one lady said, man, you need to write a book. And I didn't even wrote the book because they were already on Facebook. You know what I mean? Only thing I had to do was put the chapters in order. So that book got written in like 3 days. So I just spent 3 days putting chapters in order from the beginning all the way to the end. In the 3 days, I had a product. So, and I just like to remind people, man, you got to get, you got to want it. God is real. My angel go over me. When I was growing up, she was going over me with prayer power, the power of prayer and how they work, with the credit, the credit you earn over the year from each life and stuff. I realized that probably 9-year-old, everything I prayed for, I got, I would get a bullet every day and I pray, please God, learn me how to pray. This thing I know I'm taking karate. But that wasn't enough because I was a weakling. You know what I mean? If most guys beat me, they grab me and throw me on the ground. I say, please, God, give me muscle. Next thing I know, I got weight. And I got about 2-3 years, I got muscles everywhere. Don't nobody even notice it. The only person noticed was my mom. Then I get in the 7th grade, first day of school. Soon as I stepped off the bus, that show you the environment I believe. 4 of the biggest, baddest bullies I ever seen. Say, give it up. They got beard. In the 7th grade now, they got beards and sideburning. And I'm looking, I ain't never seen these 3 guys before. They bigger than the teacher. But I remember the little guy because he beat me up from the 1st grade all the way to the 5th, And they say, give it up. Next thing I know, I beat 2 fairly easy. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how I'm doing. Beat 2 fairly easy. The 2 bigger ones started running. Everybody say, man, you beat the 4 baddest bullies in school. And I'm wondering, when I'm going to class, damn, how did I do that? You know what I mean? Prayers work. I get out of college. I'm still skinny, 138. I'm looking at all these big guys, and please God, I want to be like Lex Luthor, 275 pounds all money. You know what I mean? In muscle, you know what I mean? Next thing I know, I'm one of the most dangerous karate men in the world. I'm at 285, 275. And I'm moving around like a kid that weighs 100 pounds. But see, I tell everybody, God got a sense of humor because they ain't told God about what's going to happen after I get them 285 pounds or what I want to happen, which will turn into a fat man. you know what I mean? So God got a sense of humor. And you have to be careful what you pray for because he will give it in a particular type of way. You can't leave no loophole. You got to be directly knowing what you want when you pray, but prayer works. And most people don't even pray, but after I seen God, I stopped praying, you know. And then that was at age of 6 because I accepted that I was God's warrior and I'm going to take everything you give me. You dish me with, I'm going to take it, bro. Because I want to show you that I'm your real warrior and I'm loyal no matter what happened today.
David, what can people do in order to feel more connected, do you think?
To feel more what?
For people to feel more connected to the angels or to God, what can people do?
They him. I seen it. My angel showed me my team. And I had, at that time, I was, a little wild, So she say when you got a hard journey, God give you extra help. But at one time I had like 60 entities around 24 hours a day. And she showed them to me. Then the last time she showed it to me, I was probably 30, I would say 38 or 42. And I had like 30. But relax. Go somewhere quiet. Put in earplug. Close your eyes and just, you'll feel it. You'll see them inside of your head. When I close my eyes, at first it's just color. Then it turned to an image just like I'm looking at you now. I'm looking at people in the future. I'm looking at people in the past. They speaking to me. But they can't tell me who they is because God got that blockage. When people come in your dream, they might just walk by. They might don't say nothing. Now, I just prayed not too long ago, right? I never saw my grandma, Roxy Reynolds. Never saw her. My granddaddy, deactivated her when my mama and them were young. And I say, please, God, please, grandma. Because I pray directly to my loved ones, too. I say, please, grandma, please just let me meet you one time. Is you proud of me, grandma? Please just come visit me. And I had a dream one day. It was my dead brother, Lonnie Dream, the oldest in America. It was my other brother who's still living. I got one full brother living. And it was his old lady. Now, the story about my grandmama, she was so pretty. All the whites thought that she was white. So everywhere my granddaddy went with her, like 30, 40 men would beat them down every time they go out. So I don't know why he was going out with her, just let her go. But he was jealous, so he never let her go by herself. But my mama said every time he go out, because they had 10 children, she said like 40 white men beat him down because they thought my grandmama was white. So I never saw her, but I see her gene pool, which are the Reynolds, and they beautiful people, they like, they look white, but they Indian. You know what I mean? And I had a dream, and this beautiful lady was in the dream. And she was finna leave with Lonnie Jordan. Go down to these little houses where he be drinking at with them guys cussing and acting crazy, you know what I mean? And I say, man, don't take grandma around there, man. He said, but she want to go, Dave. I said, man, don't take grandma there. And then I woke up and I realized, oh my God, that was Roxy Reynolds. You know what I mean? That was my grandma. God grant me that wish for my grandma to visit. And she was proud of me because she looking at me, like you can just tell she was proud of who I became, you know what I mean? And she was a beautiful woman. I never forgot that image. Never forgot. But the prayers get answered. They can connect to angels. What I do, you got to ask. You got to pray. Please, God, let me see my angel. You got to meditate. You know, I go in the dark room and I just close my eyes. This thing I know, I'm looking at TV. You know, when I was in the nursing home, right, I never cut the TV on in the nursing home or the hospital unless John Wayne on TV. You know, if John Wayne ain't on TV, or no Cowboys ain't going to cut it off. So I've been to 3 nursing homes. Each nursing home called me into a meeting. And they asked me, have you ever had any kind of psychological evaluation? And I'm like, only when I go to nursing home. Right? They say, you never cut the TV off. So because the TV in my head. What do you mean the TV in your head? I said, miss, when I close my eyes, I'm watching TV in the past, the future, and the present. So then they run tests on me, right? Come back normal. You know, I ain't crazy. You know, I just know how to connect. And what I tell most people, listen to your inner voice. Listen to signs. Like Vanessa, right? One day she was walking her dog. She saw one feather, right? So she looking at the feather, she picked it up. When she picked it up, now she see 1,000 feathers. And she say, David, is that a sign? That's a sign. When you see something like that, just pray right on the spot. You know? Like when you go in your house and you see a white feather on your pillow, you know ain't no bird in your house. I never saw a white bird. Not with a little baby feather. You know what I mean? I see duck feather. I seen eagle feather. But sometimes when I come in my house, I see little white feather. Like a little white, you know, just a small bird. And I know right then an angel left. You got to watch the signs, and the angel give you signs. Like sometimes I'll be riding down the road, and you see it all the time, 33 miles per hour. And one day I looked at that 33 miles per hour, my whole body got warm. I called my friend on the job. Hey, bro, you play number? Yeah, I play number. I said, man, 33 gonna come down. 33 gonna come. I forget about it. Go to work the next day. Man, I'm glad you gave me that 33, man. I want $600. You know, you got to feel the sign. I look at numbers all the time, repeated numbers. That let me know my angel is near. And I also, this happened all the time. I hear the voice. David. When I hear that, I just go to pray. Especially I know who voice it is. You know, I smell something cooking, I live alone. Like for the last 2 years off and on, I live alone. Most of my life I live alone because I'm an introvert. You know? Because I want to have an open field for spirits to come. You know what I mean? But it don't matter. Because even when I'm sleeping next to somebody, right? That spirit comes, that person don't move. They don't see nothing no matter how much noise, no matter how loud we're talking, no matter if there's 100 entities in the room, that person don't move. So the angels don't care how many people's around when they step to you. Because they're going to stop all that. Period. So, but that's why I've been, you know, alone most of my life, because I want to leave open field for the spirits and the angels, because when I was coming up, I saw them every day. You know, I saw them every day. But they there.
Thank you. I think you're right. Like if people just pay attention to the signs, it'll start becoming more and more obvious and more connected. David, where can people, I know that you've written your books, where can people connect with you or get hold of your books?
My books are at davidjstubbs.com, and they're also on Amazon. And my main page is linked on The Big and Kept Secret in History. They can find a short story about every book, and they also let you read a couple of pages.
Lovely. That sounds amazing. I'll post those links below. And then just before we go, do you have a message for our viewers?
Oh, the message will be everything is just an illusion. Don't stress out over little things because you're stressing for basically nothing. Because nothing that serious on this planet, I'm telling you, when you get out the body, you just bust out the laugh. Because again, even death is an illusion. On this side, when we die, we crying. On that side, everybody, you finish your journey. You finish your journey. Congratulations. You finish your journey. It's a big deal to finish your journey. You know, so don't take nothing so serious on the planet. You know what I mean? Like, I dedicated my whole life to proving myself on golf courses, right? I'm working 10 times harder than everybody else. Everybody else go home 3 o'clock. I'm working from 5:30 in the morning to 3 a.m. at night. And it took me 40 years to realize, man, because the people who weren't working, you know, what we call like, man, they sorry. Them people still working a day. They still working a day. And they always told me, man, you work too hard, nobody cares. They're not going to give you extra money. They're not going to pat you on the back. They don't care. And that's why my next life, I would never take a job serious. Never again, you know. You got to get a job where you enjoy it. A job that don't feel like a job, basically, you know. So, like I'm writing these books. That ain't a job. That's a hobby, you know. That's telling my story of the unknown. And people need to hear it. Because we're not alone. No matter how sad you feel, how depressed, you got to tap into your spiritual world. Because it's there. But you got to pray for it. You got to want it. It just don't happen. Because like the angels say, they ain't going to help you. Because they hate interfering in your life. They ain't going to help you unless you ice. You can be dying or thirst. And it can be a big lake of water, fresh water lake around the corner. They ain't going to help you. You got to ice for help. You can't be tough and don't pray. Because they're going to see how tough you are. Ice for help. Don't be ashamed of ice for help. If you want to see your mom, you want to see your daddy, you want to see your husband, you got to pray. Pray to God. Pray to your angel. Pray to them. I hear preachers tell people about don't pray to the dead because the dead. No, man, I pray to the dead, bro. And they come visit me in my dream to give me an answer. Or sometimes they visit me in the physical form. But you got to pray to tap into that power. You got to pray, you know, or you ain't going to tap in because of the noise. You know, the noise is bad nowadays in the world. And noise will block your concentration. It'll block you from even seeing miracles. You know, you can't see miracles because of noise. So that would be my message to everybody.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, and it's true. We get so caught up in what's going on in the world that we forget that this is just temporary. It's not really who we are. It's just a game.
Yeah.
Well, David, thank you so much. It was fascinating hearing your story. Yeah,
I appreciate
keep doing you.
And you keep doing
keep shining your light. Keep fighting your spiritual battles. I love it.